to the love that has laid hold of me. I'm holding on to the love that has laid hold of me.
I want to spend the next 8 weeks with you focusing on a subject that God gives a lot of attention to in His Word. It's a faculty that He has given to we humans alone that distinguishes us from every other animal, and it's our minds. God says a lot to us in His Word about our minds, and so I want to spend the next 8 weeks focusing on that theme with you for a little bit of time each day in these devotions. I want to start today by reading a passage from the book of Isaiah, chapter 55. I'm going to read a couple verses that sort of introduce it, and then it's the last 2 verses that I really want to emphasize with you. But let me start reading Isaiah 55, verse 6 and 7. It says, "Seek the Lord while He may be found. Call on Him while He is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the evil man his thoughts. Let him turn to the Lord, and He will have mercy on him, and to our God, for He will freely pardon." Beautiful, powerful verse. But now it's verse 8 and 9 I want to focus your attention. "For my thoughts are not your thoughts," this is God speaking, "for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Now, this passage of Scripture where it says, as my ways are higher than your ways and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts, this has been used many, many times to present the notion that for human beings, God is completely incomprehensible, that His thoughts are so above ours and His ways are so above ours that we could never begin to understand Him. And yet the entire Bible is this God whose ways and thoughts are above us, deliberately, intentionally making Himself known and understood to us. It is a terrible misconception or mishandling of Scripture to say that, God is incomprehensible and we could never understand Him. Am I saying that we will ever know all of the brilliance and depth of intelligence of God? No. But God has deliberately created us with the faculties, the main one being these minds of ours, so that indeed we can understand Him. So what does it mean when it says that His ways are higher than our ways and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts? Let me start with this in reverse. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Many times in Scripture it talks about human beings as those that walk in darkness. Often it calls us those that are blind. It says we're blind, we walk in darkness. Think about what those terms mean. I don't know if you've ever been in complete darkness before, but when you're in complete darkness, you could trip over something quite easily, or you might have something very valuable in front of you, but you won't even know it. You can't see it. You're just fumbling around. Likewise, and this is without trying to be insulting in any way, shape, or form, but consider the life of a blind person compared to a sighted person. Let's take a blind person walking down a city street. Think of all the things they have no possible way to understand what is going on around them. They hear things, they smell things, but they can't see them. A sighted person has so much more firsthand knowledge than a person that's blind. In the Scripture, it says of human beings, if we are apart from our Creator, if we don't have His Word, enlightening us, it says that we're in the dark, we're blind. You see, God is a multi-dimensional being, and He sees things in all the dimensions we can't. So we're fumbling around with our sense-governed existence. If we can't see it, taste it, touch it, feel it, smell it, we don't know for sure it exists. And yet there's multiple dimensions that are invisible to us, and God sees them perfectly clearly. So when it says His thoughts are higher than ours, it's because He's a multidimensional being, and we are in the dark unless He opens to us these multi-dimensions and He starts talking to us and telling us and teaching us about them, which He does in His Word. So His thoughts are higher than our thoughts because we're cut off from dimensions, because we broke trust with our Creator, and because of sin, for now, not forever. What does it mean when it says His ways are higher than our ways? Well, this is a big distinctive. Because when Adam and Eve broke trust with God in the Garden of Eden, every human since we have been born with a distrust, more or less, for God. We fear Him. We're just like Adam and Eve. When we hear His voice, we don't run toward Him, we run away from Him. Our guilt and our shame, they become barricades that make it very hard for us to want anything to do with God. We fixate on Him being this almighty, powerful being, but we have a hard time ever feeling safe around Him. So when it says that His ways are above our ways are driven. Every human being is driven by, number one, the drive for self-preservation. We don't know how long we're going to be alive, but we want to live as long as we can. That drives us, and it moves our thoughts in darkened ways. We start making decisions based on, I'll do anything I have to do to survive. The second drive we have is self-gratification. We learn in life pretty early on that some things are pleasurable and some things are painful. So we are driven by this pragmatic philosophy that I want to avoid pain and gain pleasure. So between these two drives, we fumble around, like Scripture says, in darkness. God's ways are different. God's powers are always harnessed or controlled by His sacrificial goodwill and love for those that He created and for the whole universe. We are not so driven. Our drives for self-preservation and self-gratification, they cause us to do things that ought not be done at times. We are fumbling in darkness. So it's not that God is incomprehensible. He never wants to be known in that fashion. And when ministers and Christians present God as incomprehensible, they're actually contradicting the very thing that Jesus came to earth to completely resolve. In Jesus, it says in the New Testament, we have all the fullness of God revealed to us in physical form. God wants Himself to be known. He offers Himself to us intimately and lovingly, and it's to our demise when we try to present Him as an incomprehensible being. Well, these minds of ours have a God-given capacity to know God, and the more we know God and know the truth about Him and the truth about the universe and life as He reveals it, the more these minds of ours can start a deep transforming work. We'll talk about that more in upcoming devotions that we'll be sharing on this subject. I want to close by giving a thought to you. I'm going to share this with you each week. I want you to keep on holding on to the love that laid hold of you. Goodbye.
I'm holding on to the love that has laid hold of me. I'm holding on to the love that has laid